Now with that, I think we can, well actually, Senator Boucher is here.
Good evening, everyone that braved the bad weather here.
Just in time for questions.
Just in time, oh, well, perfect timing, I guess. I apologize. I was at an annual award ceremony for the Girl Scouts of Connecticut, and the honoree was a woman of merit that's in my town and a neighbor. She is the Chief Information Officer for IBM, and quite an accomplished woman. And so we had to present her with a citation, and
That's it, she's still a Girl Scout?
well, she wasn't a Girl Scout, always a Girl Scout, just like a Boy Scout. We have an Eagle Scout here from Reading right here, John Board, and there's another Eagle Scout right here beside me. And it's a wonderful thing to celebrate. It's very important. So I do
So
apologize.
we've basically just kind of gone through the PowerPoint that you've seen before.
Yes, I
Talked
have.
about, kind of where the budget stood, some of the major public acts. Any thoughts, questions, advice? Sir?
Is there an avenue a citizen can use, or can there be something implemented to alert people to wasted tax dollars? For instance, I see the State Department of Transportation trimming the hedges between Route 7 and New Milford every year, twice a year.
Right.
They trim the hedges in the middle of the median. There's absolutely no reason for it, and they do it all the time. It's stuff like that that it just drives me crazy.
Yeah, there are dedicated, though, accounts, and that's why they do it. And it's that account, they can't use it for anything else because it's legally restricted to that. And that's, if you don't use it, you lose it, so that's probably their mentality.
Well, that's bureaucratic, yeah.
It really is, but you're absolutely right. There are a lot of areas that we could be conserving right now, a number of areas. And I will have to tell you that we have a program that's costing us $100 million right now that does not need to be there, shouldn't have been put in place at the worst of our economy a couple of years ago, which is the earned income tax credit, which is not appropriate. It's just like a tax rebate for someone that doesn't pay taxes, but they're working.
It's not a tax credit, it's a check.
It's a check.
We'll talk about that offline, and I'll
I was just gonna say, as a follow-up to that, I've seen the state of New York, when they mow the medians now, they only mow 2 passes, and they let the middle go to 4 feet every year, versus we mow everything
Right,
Yeah.
right.
every 3
I
weeks.
don't, listen, I know what you're talking about, because sometimes you see good ideas or bad things happening. Frankly, there's no really good mechanism in place besides letting us know. And I'll be glad to talk to you offline and take notes on that. I actually keep a list every year, and I go back and I try to look at it and get some resolutions, so.
And just as a general matter, what's the path a citizen could take? Tell your neighbors, write a letter. Tell your state reps, and your senators, right, exactly. But I'm saying, but also let people know. I mean, and so, the annoying stuff like, we're mowing hedges when we shouldn't be, But if, some of the bigger stuff like Tony's talking about, people, the earned income tax credit. A lot of people, when you get us and we get up and we talk and people, their eyes roll back in their head and they go away. If you're at a barbecue, you said, we give away $100 million to people who don't pay taxes and call it a tax credit. Well, so that's not true, you're crazy. Well, it turns out it is true.
There are little things that you point out that add up to be very big over a period of time. There's a lot of waste, there's a lot of fraud that's embedded in government. There are a lot of positions that are being paid when people aren't there working. We just had an auditor's report come out on our higher educational system, all sorts of things that were pointed out. But even more so, there's at least $500 million that could be saved if we were to take certain services and have the nonprofit community be providing it. One really good example is Dempsey Hospital is a UConn hospital. It is not a nonprofit hospital. Most universities, their hospitals, even Johns Hopkins University Hospital, one of the best in the country, are situated as a nonprofit entity, just like you have Hartford Hospital and St. Francis. It's costing us millions of dollars in deficit every year. So they did honestly try to merge it, take it and no longer it be a state entity, but make it a nonprofit hospital with St. Francis or Hartford Hospital. They sat down, they put the income statements down and all their balance sheets to look at that, to transfer those employees to that other hospital network would have cost double, 50% more of what the labor costs were at the current Hartford Hospital St. Francis. If they assumed those employees at the same rate, they would have to close up and declare bankruptcy. That's how out of balance the difference is between providing services the same, and you would have to admit that St. Francis Hospital and Hartford Hospital are just as good, if maybe not even better, than Dempsey Hospital. And yet the state and the taxpayers are paying double the cost of keeping that operational. And that's just one example of so many other things that
Yeah,
are
we
happening.
could privatize a whole
Oh.
ton of stuff.
Well, it's not
But
even
in answer-
advertising,
answer
it's
your
just bringing it
question,
all, yeah.
Let us know individually. There's no great mechanism in place. When you see something that's going wrong, you pretty much have to ask us, you directly, and follow up with us about it if it's something we can fix.
I mean, you
Because
could get out and
there's-
chase the
there's-
guy and yell on the mower.
There's people spending money all over the place, like she's talking about it.
A constituent actually uncovered fraud at the emissions testing in the Darien rest stop on 95. They called me, he was a constituent from New Canaan, had gone, and he watched them pocketed the $10 or $20, what it was at the time. We had an investigation done, they found that in fact that was happening, and they closed that whole thing down. So, you know, that's just a guy on the street, somebody from your town, just speaking up.
We had a hand right over here. We were next to her.